I started to develop the script more, and what happened was in July, I started to go through my diaries I've been keeping diaries since 1973. And obviously once it got to 75 onwards, they were very, very full and everything. And I've been kind of dreading it because, you know, I don't, despite being a historian, I don't live in the past. I try not to. And I knew these would be really personal and full of teenage angst and stuff. And I was thinking, oh my God, is this going to dredge it up? And in fact, I was absolutely mesmerized. I was able to read them pretty objectively because it's a long time now. I'm 61 now. I was writing these when I was 15, 16, 17 and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, we did that. Wow. It was really, and how detailed they were. And looking through those diaries, it reminded me so powerfully about the close relationship that I'd had with Neil, our close friendship, and how important we've been to each other. And I hadn't really thought about that for years. And I went, oh my God, there's a really interesting story here, and how we sort of became friends and how we found each other, knowing there was something unusual about us both. And then we both came out virtually at the same time. And then that journey that we started to make together, and then how life took us in different directions. And
I was just going to say, Rose, one of the questions actually was how long did it take you to find all the material? But of course, a lot of it is based on your own diaries. It's all your own material, isn't it? Really,
all the material that you see in the film, every image, every document is here. It's just here. Seriously. It's just to my left. It's that was the point. I mean, I could have, if I'd used other people's material, it would have been a different film. But the point about the whole project, because there are actually different elements to this now. We've got performing the archive, 40 years out and counting, performing the archive, which will be stage show. Then you've got 40 years out and counting, experiencing the archive, and that will be that I'm going to do a Facebook Live presentation in a week's time, and that would have been the workshops and stuff that I would have done. So it's letting people experience the archive, and then hopefully my agent and I are just about to start working on this, my book agent. We think there's a market for 40 years out and counting stories from the archive. And it is the whole point of the project. It's not borrowing other people's archives, because this is about my experience as I lived it with the groups. It's my version of events. I'm not saying it's the definitive or anybody else's, but it's my story, but with other people's stories, and it's how I experienced it, and I chronicled it, whether it's diaries or letters or whatever, or just keeping. I mean, I've got the next film I want to do. I'm already planning the next film. I've got really saucy now. I've taught myself to use the equipment. Hey. I'm planning to do another film, or at least one more, but that will be about lesbian, gay, feminist theatre of the late 70s, 80s, which I was involved in. So it's very much from an experience point of view. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't think there's any, and the thing I'm doing on Sunday week is about an event called the Morpin Marathon, which was a fundraiser for Gays the Word Bookshop when they got raided by Customs and Excise in the 80s. And I was one of the participants in that reading. So it's very much, it's not borrowing other people's experience and presenting it. It's what I did, what I was involved with at the time, what that was part of generally, the general political and socio-political context. And that's what this next film will be about. It's about, my first performing career lasted from sort of 79 to sort of early 1986. And of course, a lot of my friends that I made later had no idea about that. And I thought, well, why would they? Because I gave it up, and and I didn't do it again for 25 years. So there's no particular reason why they would have known about that. And for me, even still today, and as I say in the film, there's no difference between the performance and the political. It just seems to have been my fate to do that, and that was true then, and it's true now, and I'm delighted, because I think we used to call it agit-prop theatre back in the day, and I think there's still very much a place for that, and So that's what I'm going to keep trying to do. Basically, I'm not interested in doing Shakespeare or Ibsen, or I'm not that kind of performer. But I think there's a place for what I'm doing, and being able to do like this kind of event and the presentations and hopefully the book and the films, it's hopefully letting people experience the archive in some way, because that was the whole point of this project starting years back when I thought I've got all this fantastic stuff, I use it for work virtually every day, but I'd like people to experience some of it and hear the stories and learn the history or revisit the history, whichever is applicable. So this is a very long-term ongoing project, and it all started with, I applied to do a workshop at Bishopsgate Institute. That was how it all started, and I just went, I think I could do more than this. It's taken on a life of its own. And
I think that's, you know, Bishopsgate have a fantastic archive. So if anybody's not obviously they're not open at the moment, but if when we are out of lockdown, they do have a fantastic archive there. I've been shown round actually with Sue Saunders, and he's here asking some questions. But Rose, there was just one last question. I'm sorry that we've not had as much time as we were expecting, but it was Sue's actually asked, you worked at Time Out and City Limits a while back. What was that? She's just interested to know what that was like for you, you know.
Oh wow, gosh, that's a great question. I'm sure more time to say. They were two very different experiences, because I was at City Limits 4 years. It was a co-op. I was a pro rata member of the co-op, so I was on the staff, and I was the first ever lesbian co-editor of Out in the City, and I did that for 4 years with my late friend and colleague Brian Kennedy, who'd set it up. And poor guy, because they had no money, he had to do the lot for 2 years on his own. And he always used to say to them, look, I could be many things to many people, but I cannot be a lesbian. You need to find some money. And we were paid 1 day a week to cover everything that was going on in London. 1 day a week. Yeah, right. And it was something like £27 a week. You know, it was challenging, because there was a lot to cover even then. And the funny thing about it was, I never wanted to be a journalist or an author, ever. Wasn't. And I had to be talked into applying for that City Limits job, and I was so nonchalant. I was going, yeah, all right, yeah, we need to finish. And I think that's probably partly what got me the job, because there were other women who were like desperate to get on there, but they didn't want people with agendas, and I was just part of the community, and I was involved in stuff. And I think we kind of knew we had an enormous responsibility, because Time Out was there, but it didn't, and it did lesbian book reviews on its gay page, as it was called then, but they didn't have anybody on staff to do it. That was a difference. That was a big difference, because once I started doing City Limits, they thought, oh yeah, she can write, right? And I started to get commissioned to do features and other stuff, and then magazines like Spare Rib and Gay Times started to get me to do stuff. So that's how I became a journalist by accident. And then out of that eventually came the book. So it was all, you know, you can't plan a career like mine, because it's impossible. Whereas City Limits is sort of, I could see it was going to go down the pan, and I'd left anyway. And then I approached Michael Griffiths at Time Out, but he was a lovely, sweet man. He was looking for a lesbian to do some stuff, again, not to be member of staff. And I said, do you think I could do it? He said, oh God, I'd love to do it. So I started doing reviews and stuff, and I sat in for him doing the listings when he was on holiday. And then people like the TV section said, oh, we like you, we want you to do it. So I started doing freelancing for the other sections. So they were two very, very different experiences. I mean, politically, they were very, very different. And City Limits was just, you couldn't invent a magazine like that again. It was an incredible place to work. And they did what a lot of publications wouldn't do now, and probably didn't do afterwards. They took someone like me who didn't want to be a writer. They obviously thought there was something about me. And they nurtured people. They nurtured people that they felt that you had something that you didn't know you had. I mean, the first time Brian said, right, you've been to see that show, you've got to write a 500 word review. And I said, I don't know 500 words, which was almost true at the time. And I can't tell you how many times I typed Tipex all over the place, retyping that piece, and I did it. And of course now 500 words, I go, is that all? It's funny to think of it now. And it was an incredible place. And if you look at the roster of writers and broadcasters that came out of City Limits, was also people that went into it. I mean, my first editor at City Limits was Penny Valentine, who I grew up with. She used to work for Music Press. And I was like, oh my God, but I was so scared of going into the editor's room. I wouldn't go in there for months because I was in awe of them all. B. Campbell and people like that right in there, Duncan Campbell. And I was like, I'm with these people. And Brian and I have to say, we were very vigilant in what we did, and we were really devoted to what we did. I don't think we ever sat there going, whoa, aren't we important? Aren't we great? Do you know what we thought about every week? How the hell are we going to get this into 2 pages? That's what we thought about, because we only had 2 pages. Sometimes if we didn't have enough advertising, it would be 1.5. And of course, if you left something out, you get people on the phone going, you've left us out. And we're going, look, we're really sorry. It's not, these decisions are not ours to make. So it was an incredible on-the-job training at City Limits with politically minded people. What could be better? And it gave me a career that I hadn't planned. And I should always be so grateful to them for taking a chance on me, because there was no reason for them to do it.
I think that's really, I mean, that's just been fascinating, Rose. I think I've found out a whole lot more about how you started out, and it's really interesting actually learning about that early part of your career to see where you've now taken it with this, really interesting film, really heartfelt film. Actually, it was quite emotional to watch. So, but thank you so much for sharing that very personal story of yours. And yeah, I'm sorry we don't have more time. I'm conscious we're 5 minutes over already, so I don't want to keep people but thank you so much for joining us for this little bit of question and answer.
Thank you everybody for watching it, and share it, tell people about it, because I think there's some interesting stuff there that people would quite like to know. But yeah, I mean, it was I have to say there were a lot of tears shed this end while I was making it. It was but in a good way as well.
It
wasn't traumatic. It wasn't traumatic at all.
No, almost. I was saying, was it almost cathartic in a way to sort of share it, or was it still? I appreciate it was still very hard because it's so close to you.
Cathartic. It was just I was glad to be able to tell people, and I was glad to be able to pay tribute to Neil, because I'd never mourned him. I'd never mourned him properly.
Well, on that note, we'll leave it in tribute to Neil. Thank you so much.